Say the Semantics, episode 314. It is May 6th, 2025. My name is Myro. This is a podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Tuesday afternoon / evening. Decided to record today. I guess instead of tomorrow. I wanted to kind of put out just some quick thoughts on last night's games, because I think it was probably the craziest pair of games that we've seen in quite some time. Both road teams went in and upset both series, where the home team I feel is heavily favored. Crazy stuff. So I didn't watch most of the Knicks and Celtics game. I was kind of in and out of it. I obviously went back and watched the highlights and everything, but crazy. I mean, it definitely sets the tone for the series. I think the way in which the Knicks fought back after being down by 20 is super impressive. And this was on a bad Cat game. Brunson was still good. But they went down 20 in kind of the first place, where I was kind of seeing the clips and seeing some of the highlights where the Celtics were doing their thing and hitting some shots. The big conversation piece, I think, is the fact that they missed 45 threes, which is insane. It's a new NBA playoff record, which tops the Wolves record of 44 missed threes from the last round. So I don't know, I guess you're kind of seeing a little bit of a trend there. But yeah, I mean, it felt the way the Knicks fought back in this game felt kind of reminiscent of how they sort of just grinded their way in games in last year's playoffs, in particular in the Sixers series, where they were down in some games. Obviously the big game, I think it was game 2, where it seemed like all was lost, and it seemed like the Sixers were going to tie the series, and you had the crazy sequences, which then led to like the DiVincenzo 3. I don't think there's anything like that in this game, but they just sort of really, just kind of chipped away at that lead to eventually kind of tie the game. The game went into overtime, and then they kind of cleaned things up there. But just really, I think you're really seeing some toughness, some kind of a little bit of grit with this team. You could argue that playing against a team like Detroit maybe kind of sharpened their steel a little bit, you know what I mean? And I think that it's good that they're like, I mean, first of all, I'm happy that they got the win. I'm glad that anything is possible, right? Like, who knows, maybe the Celtics go on to win the next 4, but like, even then, I'm glad that this has started off, even with the Pacers Cavs series, it's all started off with, it just completely has changed maybe like the initial outlook of what the series is going to look like for each of these conference semifinal games. And that's huge, right? I think last year, like, even just comparing, like, these playoffs in general have been awesome so far. Like, just compared to last year, we've had so many great series. We've had like a ton of great games. And just the first games of the second round have just lived up to it. and just have been incredible so far. And I'm really happy to see that. I'm happy. There is like, I think during the regular season, there was like kind of the clear cut, these are the three best teams in the league, with the Cavs, Celtics, and the Thunder, right? And they're all down. They're all down by one right now. And again, it's a long series. A lot of things can, still can go their way, but I think that this puts a lot of pressure on those teams to be able to be like, hey man, we gotta show out, or this might not go well. I heard there's the stat of what 70% of teams that 70% or something like that of teams that win game one in the playoffs go on to win the whole series. So I mean that is pretty big, but also, if I don't know if they've siphoned that down to just like second round and beyond, because I feel like first round series, that's pretty. I don't know. I feel like that's like a good indicator, and I think that you could kind of whittle that down a little bit. But so I'm curious what it is if you break it down into kind of the later rounds, like exclude out the first round, what the percentage is. So maybe that's a thing to worth looking into. But I am just like, I'm just happy, man. Like this is it's been really fun. Warriors game is obviously going to come later tonight. So that's that's going to be something. I've already kind of given my piece about that series and what I hope for it to look like, and what I would want for game one. But I think with just the rest of the series, like just overall, like the pool of teams, the fact that while there are the clear-cut best teams in the league, when you get into the playoffs, there is a lot of kind of the muddying of the waters where it doesn't necessarily really matter too much anymore, just the record, especially who you're kind of going up against. Like this really feels like the most even playing ground I mean just ever, honestly, like just across the board. Like I've never felt like, if you look at every single team that remains, and if you like pit against each other, it's like you could see that being like a series, like any of them being like an exciting series, right? Because I think all of the teams that are remaining are really quality teams, and that's really exciting. Like that gives me a lot of hope. Like even of course I want my Warriors to win it, but regardless of that, I really like just kind of seeing who's remaining and what could be like a potential finals matchup. I'm already liking where this is headed in comparison to last year. I mean, on top of the playoffs already being just awesome across the board, and just so many memorable moments already, you know what I mean? So I'm just I just want to like really and I'm trying my best to just like take in every day, every game. I mean, that's why I'm kind of recording this on a daily basis, to kind of get out my thoughts, because I really just want to get them out there. But and really just appreciate, because these have been really special. This has been a really special playoffs, and I think it's worth talking about. Some quick notes on the Thunder Nuggets series. Man, I mean, they just choked. Like the Thunder just completely choked at the end. Like that was just kind of that was just it. Like they fouled. Like I understand the whole philosophy of fouling when up 3 and all that, but I'm usually not a fan of that. I'm like, I like to see just the defense play it out. You know what I mean? Sure, you should try to leverage everything that you can use. Maybe try to foul like the worst free throw shooter on the floor, all those kinds of things. But I like there's just too much. There's already so much stoppage in play at the end of the game. Just let it play out. You know what I mean? If they hit a shot, they hit a shot. Come back and win the game on the other end. Like there's just, you know what I mean? Like I think there was risk already in the fact that you were fouling up three, and then on top of that, if you are playing the foul game, the other team is also going to try to foul your worst free throw shooter, and that's exactly what happened. They fouled Chet Holmgren. He missed both free throws. Nuggets come back down, and Aaron Gordon hits a game winner. So it's just like, I think that there is, I don't know, like like what am I gonna? It's like how much you know. That's such a precarious position to be in, but like if you are the Thunder too, the best defensive team this year, right? Statistically, and one of the best defensive teams in regular season history, like, wouldn't you want to try to rely on that defense to try to get a stop at the end, up three? Like, listen, like, let Jokic back you down and try to get a bucket. Like, let him do that and let them run the shot clock down. Or, just let him run the clock down. And it's like, okay. But just playing that game, I don't know. It just felt, I think that was just like a huge blunder on their end. Sure, you're putting a lot of, you're trusting that Chet is going to be able to make those shots, but he didn't do it. Like, sure, some of that falls on him, but mostly it falls on the decisions by the coaching staff, right? On Dagno's part to do that, right? That's kind of what led to the loss, right? I don't think, sure, Chet is partially to blame, but still, like, they made the shot at the end there. And so, yeah, I mean, crazy. I was watching that. I was like, I cannot believe that just happened. I watched that game. That was crazy. I mean, look, I'm just, I'm just being, look, and I know it's just game one. Things can change. I do think that the better teams still have a lot of favorability for them. I still expect those teams to come out on top. But it does make this a lot more interesting. And depending on how game 2 goes, like, that just could be, man, that can be a whole thing. Like, if the home team goes down 2-0, if one of the Cavs, Pacers, and Thunder, not Pacers, excuse me, Cavs, Celtics, and Thunder, if one of those go down 2-0, dangerous territory, you know what I mean? But who knows? I think, but I like this kind of uncertainty period that we're in right now, and I'm just happy. I'm just really happy with the basketball that we're seeing. So, yeah, just wanted to kind of get my quick thoughts out there. I will talk about the Warriors game tomorrow. That's going to be up later tonight. So just exciting stuff, you know what I mean? And I'm just happy with the basketball all around, and hopefully the Warriors are going to be the next road team to get a win. We'll see if that ages poorly, but it is what it is. So yeah, I'll catch back up tomorrow with my thoughts on the Wolves-Warriors game. All right, recording this on May 7th. It is Wednesday, a Wednesday afternoon / evening. So last night, we had two more games, one of which went down to the wire once again. And I'm just gonna, I'll express this after, but you got the Pacers Cavs going down to the very last second, and then you got the Warriors Wolves, which ended up in a pretty, I would say, pretty handedly winning in Minnesota, which I think was good. I think it helped despite Steph going out early in this game, it helped that the Wolves shot like absolute trash. So that kind of was a big determining factor in that game. But I think it was a clear example, I would say, in both of these games, of where persistence, it's different because the Warriors had the lead for the majority of the game, but persistence is kind of key here. In Indiana's case, in the Pacers' case, in which they came all the way back 20 down, was they never let up. They always just kept on just chipping away. They just kept playing their game. And then at the very end, you get another insane. Just Indiana just has had, even in the regular season too. This happened like, I would say the last stretch of games, I don't know, last like handful of games in the regular season for them, all kind of ended up in this manner. Now in the playoffs, you have 2 games in which they come back down 7 with like a minute or so remaining, and then winning it. Like it's crazy. I don't know what kind of skill that is, but I just think that they are just not giving up. You know what I mean? In the Warriors case, it's like regardless of if Steph goes down, if other people are kind of injured, Jimmy's not playing 100%, but you have like just the collective. It was such a team effort by others kind of stepping up when needed to, that just kind of pushing and maintaining that lead. Like there were moments where it felt like the Wolves were coming back in that fourth quarter where Ant was finally kind of hitting his stride, that the Warriors, I think they maybe got it down to like 9 at most, but it never felt like there was a momentum shift. Jimmy, he went to the line to just kind of slow it down. Buddy Hield had just like these timely buckets that were just like, you know what? No, we're going to put a stop to this. Like there's not really a chance for this team to make a comeback this time. You know what I mean? So it's different because you're kind of going in opposite ways, but maintaining that lead by the Warriors and the way in which the Pacers have just done this for a good while now, in which they just do not give up regardless of how improbable the situation is, I think is really commendable. And they do it by like both teams, and I know it's completely different situations, but both teams have kind of done it by committee, right? Have done it as a team. And that's kind of been really the most impressive part of it. You know what I mean? Like you have the Pacers, who have just a multitude of guys who have just who just have like a really impressive roster overall, right? Sure, the Cavs were down Mobley, Garland, and DeAndre Hunter, but like they were still up by 20. You know what I mean? Like the Cavs are still up by 20. Like they should have won that game, but I think it is much more of a credit to the Pacers for just having just going through the motions and understanding that it is never over until it goes down to 0, right? And I think that's super impressive. So just really of course, I'm very happy about the Warriors winning. I felt kind of weird throughout yesterday's Warriors game because just Steph's injury kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. You know what I mean? Like I was kind of just like letting go. Like I was like, man, I don't even, like, regardless of how this game goes, win or loss, like I kind of was like not, it was hard for me to like appreciate that win until today, just kind of looking back on it, because I was kind of like, man, it's awesome that we won game 1, but I just don't like kind of looking forward, I don't like the outlook, right? Obviously, with Steph, they already ruled him out for game two, and just depending on, I don't know, his ability to push through that pain, that might keep him out for longer than 2-3 games, and that's just concerning, right? And that I don't know how that's going to look for the rest of the series. And that was just kind of the thing that was on the back of my mind watching this game. So I felt like I was really trying to, I was trying to appreciate, Draymond going off for, 5 threes or however many he made. Pat Spencer doing his, having some moments down the stretch. But it was kind of hard to, because I was just like, man, dude, I'm glad that we're winning right now. And I'm glad that it's giving us a lot of confidence moving forward in this series, and possibly without Steph. But that wasn't what I was thinking, you know what I mean? So, but what happened, outside of obviously the injury itself, what happened was what I wanted to happen. They took game one, and along with the rest of all the other road teams, have won game one. And I think that's huge, right? I think I'm glad that we got this one, because I do think that if they had let go of the rope, and lost, I think that it would put put a huge damper on top of everything else, right? So I'm glad that they went through with it. I'm really happy that they stuck with it, and Jimmy was kind of able to sort of command, it feels like we've sort of morphed into now, the Miami Heat Jimmy team, right? Obviously without Draymond or anything, but it kind of feels that way, right? Dragging a bunch of role players that can complement the team in certain ways, but dragging them along to a victory underhanded, right? I think that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting here. So I think upon reflection, just looking back at the results of this game, and just thinking about, instead of being down on the fact that Steph is going to be out for a little while, appreciate the fact that they got game one, and that we also have Jimmy Butler, right? I think that's huge. I feel, and now I think there is less pressure now, in a weird way. There's less pressure on the Warriors now to reach those kinds of, to overcome certain things, right? I think there is now kind of the ball is in Minnesota's court, where they have to essentially adjust to the fact that there is no Steph Curry, right? That is just kind of the situation. And I think that it's gonna be It's going to be incredibly difficult for sure. I still think that the Wolves are a good team. They just played absolute trash, really, yesterday. I was getting I'm like, dude, this is that first half was just so ugly. That was just a ugly game to watch. You know what I mean? We were winning, but it just felt like it was just such a rock fight between the two teams, and the Warriors did come out. But I don't know. I think that I don't think the Wolves should necessarily be written off so easily. But again, like I said, I think there is kind of less pressure now for the Warriors to have to. I don't know. We're kind of the underdog. We have the cards, and there is no. I think if the Wolves lose game two, that should really put them in huge, like, panic alert, right? So if there is the possibility that they can take game 2 in Minnesota, I think that would be, I mean, obviously that would be huge, right? We saw the impact of that in the Pacers Cavs series, in which they went up 2-0. So if we can kind of put ourselves in that type of situation, essentially kind of hold steady until Steph gets back, Jimmy's gonna have to do some he's gonna have to do his thing, right? But I have some faith, because we've seen it before. We've seen what he's been able to do with Miami, and while he is older, for sure, I am a lot less. I think I have a lot more confidence that he has the ability to do what he needs, get others involved. I liked the contributions from across the board. Kuminga had some nice moments too. Like they played Kuminga, and he essentially kind of played himself out of the rotation, but he did have some moments, like he contributed, right? And that's just like, it just has to be just a lot of players just chipping in. I mean, they went 12 players, 13 players deep yesterday. Like her, just pulling all of the strings, and it all kind of worked out because everybody chipped in the way that they needed to. Buddy had an awesome game again. It feels like he's really just kind of, the last 2 games, he's just hit this kind of another level, and I don't, hopefully he can continue to kind of be that for us, but it's been really encouraging, right? I think it was just sort of hard to maybe enjoy that as much in the moment, but looking back on it, I think it's really encouraging. It's really encouraging to kind of see all that, and the whole it is kind of like the strength in numbers thing is sort of coming back to give a little push for this team when needed. So I am of course concerned still. I still, I don't know how long this hamstring strain is gonna take for Steph to recover. They're not giving like a clear timetable for that. So I just hope that he's able to get back in this series, and that the team can kind of hold steady until he does. So that's my hope. But I do think that kind of puts less pressure. I mean, obviously maybe the team doesn't feel that way, but I do think that it takes off some pressure to have to, because they essentially won back home court with game 1. So I'm happy with that. But it's just been these playoffs have been, I don't know, I feel like just over the course of when I started watching the NBA, just really, really digging into basketball. I mean, I started watching around 2009, really was kind of when I really started to get into it. It was like the first Warriors season that I devoted like an entire, my entire time to watching. And since then, I really cannot think of another playoffs that reached this caliber, in which, I mean, every series in the second round has been something, right? And then you had some really fun series in the first round as well, and along with some just crazy endings to those series. So I'm just trying to think of a comparison, and I can't think of any, where you just have all of these just memorable kind of moments, right? In each of the series. Like, looking back on it, I don't know. Leading to, like, sure, there's like certain playoffs that like stick out, like playoff series that might stick out, but just across the board like this, I really can't think of any that come to mind. I don't know. And and maybe because my memory is a little fuzzy because I just maybe don't remember like the 2010s like I used to. But yeah, I don't think, and it also, I mean, it also didn't help that at that time, like earlier on in the 2010s, 2009 through like 2013, the Warriors weren't in the playoffs, so like I probably wasn't paying as much attention to the playoffs back then. But yeah, even then, it's kind of like I don't really know. Maybe 20, because 22 obviously is very memorable because of the Warriors winning the championship. But I'm trying to think of like the series, and outside of maybe, outside of just the finals itself, the run the Warriors had, it wasn't, it wasn't anything crazy. And then I'm trying to think of all the other series. I guess you had like the Boston and Miami series, which was pretty fun. But outside of that, I don't know. Like it kind of is, I'm kind of drawing blank here. You know what I mean? In terms of exciting and like close series, like nothing really comes to mind, right? I don't know. Maybe 2021 is like a good one, because I think there were some really fun series. Like you had like, I think like the Hawks run was pretty fun to witness, and then the Bucks run. I mean the finals was great. The Suns and the Bucks, like that was a great finals, and like you had some fun series there, like Milwaukee and the Nets. That was a good one. You got like the Hawks upsetting the Sixers, like that kind of was like the Ben Simmons, kind of moment there of, passing up a layup. Like those things kind of stick out to me, but in terms of just like pure competitiveness, and it's hard for me to think of. I think just across the board, like every single, and who knows like how each of these series turn out. They might end up, the home team or like the higher seed might end up like turning the table as well. That might not seem the case with the Pacers and Cavs right now, right? But it's still been exciting. Like there's been some incredible moments so far that I can just kind of go back to, and I think it's going to be fun rewatching. However, whatever the end result of these playoffs are going to be, I think I'm going to have some fun just kind of looking back on these playoffs, because so far they've been probably the most exciting that I've seen in my life, just actually watching it, right? Like, sure, there might be, there's like, I don't know, there might be some people who are like, oh, you missed like the 2005-6 play. It's like, I don't remember that. I wasn't watching back then, but in my memory and in my time of watching basketball, these 2025 playoffs have been awesome and have been really fun. And I'm glad that I've been able to witness these, and I'm glad that I've been able to kind of keep a record of my thoughts on these as well. Like it's just kind of lined up perfectly for me. So that's been great. I just want to continue to just appreciate what we've been, because these feel kind of historic. Like it feels like we're kind of living in like sports history in a lot of ways, right? Sports history in the sense like this is the first time in like the second round in which the road team won, the game ones, like that's never happened before. So it's just like we're kind of in that time now and experiencing those moments. So it's been exciting. It's been really fun to kind of keep up with all that. So yeah, hopefully they continue to deliver. Tonight we got, well, the Knicks Celtics game is happening. I think it's like halftime right now. Last time I checked, the Celtics were up, so it's like, okay, this is probably going to be the one that they pull off. And then you got the Nuggets Thunder tonight. It'll be interesting to see how the Thunder respond. I feel like my prediction is that the Thunder are gonna really just they're gonna play like the hardest that they've ever played, right? Like, I mean, going down 2-0, you don't want to go down 2-0. So I think that they're gonna put that on full display, and I expect the Thunder to win this one, but you never know. You never know. I mean, could you imagine both number one seeds going down 0-2? Like, that would be crazy. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to lock in. Really, I mean, it was just like the last minute fumble, like I talked about yesterday. It was really kind of that last minute decision making to foul that really cost them the game. Essentially, other than that, they had that kind of in the bag, you know what I mean? If they just really played it smart. But I suspect that they won't make the same mistake again if it gets to that point. Anyways, yeah, just good basketball all around. I've been playing, I've just been playing Xenoblade X and just continue to sort of work my way through that. Really just sort of focusing on just kind of the side content and playing a lot more casually than really delving into the main story. Though I kind of want to get back into, the main story and just seeing how that progresses and where certain characters are going to end up. I have noticed how with like the side content, especially the ones that deal with a more kind of like an extensive story and those kinds of things, how much of a theme just kind of life and how people perceive life and the ways in which the different races in the world of Mira, how they preserve life, how they interpret death and life. And I think it's really interesting. Although one criticism I would give is that if you play enough of these quests, like a lot of the same like story beats kind of persist, right? And they essentially kind of are telling the same thing over and over. So it can be a little repetitive at times, but I do appreciate them, kind of giving out that these stories and kind of the way that they do. I think it's important to sort of, within the context and within the framework of the story and the world of this game, to really flesh out the inhabitants of it, and the way in which you as the player interact with those characters and those inhabitants. Like I think it really gives a lot more of kind of that immersive sense, right? I think with a lot of games, and this will kind of depend, this obviously depends with the type of game that you're playing. Sometimes there is kind of this lack of connection that you have with the world, right? One of my main criticisms of something like Tears of the Kingdom is that the actions that you take in the world doesn't really feel like it has a lot of impact. You know what I mean? Like, it feels much more so that you are kind of like a passerby in a situation. Link doesn't feel like he has a ton of agency in the world of the characters. Like, you're just kind of a witness to other characters' stories. And it's not all of the side content, of course not, right? But in the case of Xenoblade X, I think you feel the effect of that much more. Like, you get like direct, interactions with the characters. They refer to you. Well, I don't know if they refer to you by name, because that's like a whole text box dialogue thing that might be a little tricky. But they do refer to you, and I think they acknowledge your presence. And I think the one thing that I recently took a look at, which I didn't which I didn't look at until basically like yesterday when I was playing the game, was looking at the affinity chart in the game, and what that is. And this is a thing. This is a little device that exists in, I think, pretty much all of the Xenoblade games except for 2. I don't remember if 2 had an affinity chart. Torna did, but I don't think the base game did. Where essentially it's kind of like a map of all of like the character connections, relationships. It's essentially kind of like a relationship tree, but it's like a web. Like it starts with you in the center and kind of spreads out, and you can kind of see the effect that you kind of had on the characters in the world. And I think that's really cool. It's one of my favorite little aspects of the Xenoblade games, is to kind of see that and to kind of look at all of the, there are so many NPC characters that you obviously can't remember all of them, but I think kind of hovering over their icons, it's like, oh yeah, I remember doing that quest. And it's interesting to see kind of the relationship that character has with another NPC and all of these things. So I like that aspect. I think that adds to the immersiveness of this game, and it really makes you as like the playable character feel like a part of this world as a character. You might not have a voice or whatever, but it does make you feel like you're a part of this world. And I think that there is a purpose, and obviously outside of just it being a cool thing to look at, there is a purpose in having that kind of mechanic. One, obviously it tells you, what characters you've already interacted with and the relationships that they've set up, but it adds to the other kind of theming in this game, right? You start off this game by yourself, right? And you are kind of brought into this world and sort of are discovering parts of this world, and you've already kind of entered a space in which it's already inhabited by characters that have relationships, that have kind of communities. Like there's like the blade system, essentially, where you got all of these kind of mercenaries running around and doing missions and all that stuff, right? So there's already kind of like an established order of things. You as kind of that outsider are kind of brought into that, and you kind of have to build your identity from the bottom up. And throughout the game, you see the impact that your character has had on different relationships. Like maybe there are moments where you could do something bad, like you could make like a rude comment to like an NPC, and that could potentially affect and alter the way in which that character interacts with others as well, right? And you see that you see kind of how that develops over the course of the game as you continue to kind of do these different missions and all of that. And then you see that in the main story as well. I think it's interesting because it's like, with a unvoiced, well, I guess it would be non-voiced, a silent protagonist, I think it is kind of difficult to try to give your character like a ton of characteristics, because like essentially it's kind of like you could sort of project yourself onto that character, or you can play the way in which you want that character to be. I like that if you do end up doing a lot of these missions and a lot of these other things in the game, there's like a cutscene, I guess sort of later into the game, in the main story, where your character takes agency and does something to like protect another character, even if it doesn't seem like the best option. Like you stand up to your superior, right? Because your character, because of the experiences that they've had, because of the fact that they themselves, whoever that they might be, started off by themselves, started off as like an outsider. And so your character kind of relates to the other character who's in crisis. I think like there are some connections there. I do think that it could have been stronger if your character actually, was, had a voice and all of those things. But it's all a part of the construction of the game, and the fact that it's, largely open world, and you can kind of do whatever you want to do for the most part, right? Fly around with like a mech and take on a bunch of missions like that. That's all kind of within your ability to do so. I just think that moment, kind of that moment in particular where your character actually does something, I think is important. Like, I think that sort of adds to the fact that your character has kind of grown over the course of the story and over the game, because of what they've done and the way in which they've affected others and the way in which others have affected them. Like I think that's all kind of tied together, right? It's a little silly. Like, it is a little silly to kind of see maybe you made your character look kind of ridiculous and stuff and had them do something, but it's like it's I think it's kind of there's a little bit of a charm there as well, right? As kind of the silent protagonist and that kind of thing. It's like, oh, actually they do have a purpose in the story. Like, maybe they don't have a voice, and maybe they're not like the main focal point, and they're not directly tied to the emotional beats of the story and other characters, but there is a part for your character to play. And I think it was cool that they sort of established that. Anyways, I'm basically almost like 100 hours into X. I'm sure there's going to be plenty more hours that I'll put into it. I'm thinking about kind of the 100%. I'm not going to 100% this game, but I do want to try to complete as much of it as I can, because I think it's fun. But I am trying to figure out, like, to what extent I want to quote unquote complete this game, because obviously I want to see the story all the way through, but I also want to try to take on the challenges and see how I fare with those. And again, this is something that I mentioned recently about what my next game is going to be. I have some games that I currently have in my library that I could get into. I could get back into Final Fantasy 12, but I don't know how I'm feeling with kind of like a long RPG. So maybe I'll do something a little shorter. Maybe I'll get into Okami finally, because that's been kind of on my library for a little while now. But it's a lot to think about. I'm looking. I'll probably look over my kind of games that I want to play, and trying to sort of parse out like what I'm feeling. You know what I mean? I had sort of like a methodology last year in terms of how I structured what I wanted to play, just due to kind of timing and stuff. I wasn't exactly able to accomplish that in the way that I wanted to, and just the ability to constantly just play games and stuff. I wasn't able to earlier this year, but I do want to at least play more than one game this year. Maybe a few games on my docket, and I think it's a good opportunity to do that, just considering the fact that I won't be getting a Switch 2 anytime soon. So it's a good time. It's a good time to continue catching up with older games, and trying out some indie titles that I haven't yet. Animal Well is kind of one that I've been that I've been kind of keeping an eye out on, but there's a lot of other stuff. The Metroid games, like I still haven't played those, and I have kind of this, do I want to get into Metroid Dread, or do I want to play Metroid Prime Remastered? Prime looks like a lot of fun, and I just keep hearing good things about those games. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. I mean, like, yeah, let's just do it right now, because it's been a little bit since we've taken a look at at my list. Okay, so let's see what we got here. I'll read it. I'll read out like what kind of sticks out to me. So I have Astral Chain, Amori, Limbo, Final Fantasy VIII, another Final Fantasy, Tunic, Suikoden. I completely forgot about Suikoden, about the remasters. Like I want to play those this year, I think. I put Rogue Legacy 2 Inscription, which is like a roguelike card game from a couple of years ago that looks pretty interesting. It does look a little kind of dark too, so I don't know. I feel like I would have to be like in the right headspace for that kind of thing. Chained Echoes, Near Replicant, Sea of Stars. Like considering the conversations about that game, it came out last year, right? Or has it been a little bit longer than that? And kind of the reception of that game, I'm a little hesitant to pick it up, unfortunately. Like, it looks beautiful. I've heard some of the soundtrack, and it sounds great, but I gotta have a bit more of a compelling story than what it seems to be, so I'll probably hold off on that. The Witcher, again, Metroid Dread and Metroid Prime Remastered. Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, that might be a good one for like a shorter game. So I might consider that. I have Baldur's Gate 3, that's kind of probably down the line. I'll look into Live Alive, Valkyria Chronicles, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, another kind of maybe shorter game. If that game ever goes on sale, maybe I'll pick it up. Star Ocean, Second Story, Octopath Traveler 2, Yakuza. Yes, actually, that would be fun. Yakuza Kiwami, which is the first game in the series. Actually, I think that might be a good one to pick up. And I don't know how long it is of a game, but it looks good. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I've only heard great things about that, so I do want to get into that. East 10, a little lower on my list. I do want to play East because I kind of miss that gameplay loop. I miss the action adventure kind of RPG style that they have, just like the hack and slash and all that. And it just looks like a fun game. It's probably not, it's hard to top East 8, but I do kind of want to get back into that series at some point. I got Animal Well. I have Dark Souls on here. Like, I want to kind of give it another shot. I do. And, just depending on how I feel, it's like, maybe if I give it one more shot, I'll be like, okay, I get it now, but I don't know. It might just be the case where I just cannot click with that particular style of game and the gameplay. But I want to give it a fair shot because I've only really played it in short sessions, and I've never embarked on like a true full-on like playthrough of any of the Dark Souls games or any of the FromSoft games. So I do want to try to give it another shot if I have the patience for it. Emio the Smiling Man, I started the demo for it. I do want to play it sometime. If it goes on sale, I'll pick it up. But I've heard just the story being really good, and that might be a good just little, it's a visual novel basically, but I do want to play through that eventually. There's this game called El Shaddai Metatron, which sounds like a crazy name. I've heard that this is like a very underrated game. It's kind of like a cult classic. Looking at the game and the visuals of it, I mean, I'm like, dude, I gotta kind of pick this up. Like, this looks awesome. It was a game that came out, I think, on the Xbox 360, like that generation. And it was a major flop. The name probably didn't exactly help. But I watched like a video on it like a while back, and conceptually, like you're like an angel or something, and I don't know exactly. I don't remember exactly, but it sounded really interesting, and I kind of want to play that sometime. Nine Souls, I've heard great things about it being like a, kind of a, not exactly like a Hollow Knight type of game, but side-scrolling action game that's kind of tricky. The art style looks cool. I've heard the story is pretty good as well, so that's on my list. Link's Awakening, I had my fill with Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, so I just kind of I essentially 100% of that game, which is really fun. If I have a craving for top down Zelda and kind of that art style again, I do want to get into that. Alan Wake, which the first game, I want to play it for the story. That's kind of like some of the issues when it comes to games where I primarily play the game for the story, is where I have to kind of push through gameplay that I don't find super compelling, right? It's like, first person action. Like, this was kind of the case for me with BioShock. I loved the story. I loved the progression. I loved the mystery and just the world and the atmosphere of it. But I'm not a first person action game. I'm not like a first person shooter type of player. I've never been a fan of that kind of stuff. But I don't know. It looks like a third person shooter for Alan Wake, and I don't know if I'm not really the biggest fan of those kinds of things. And I heard that the Switch version is not exactly the best, so I'm a little hesitant to pick it up, but I do want to check it out maybe sometime. Romancing Saga 2, it got great reviews when it came out. It looks like a really good sequel of like I think it was a Famicom or a Super Famicom game, way back then. And, I heard that it's just like a really well-made RPG. You got the new Professor Layton game. And then most recently, I added Skyrim to the list, which I talked about recently, about just wanting to really delve into that after playing a little bit of Oblivion at a friend's place. So that's on my list as well. But yeah, I mean, we got a chock full list of games, and I don't know. Maybe I'm feeling a side scroller. Maybe I'm feeling kind of like a platformer. We'll see how it goes. Maybe if one of these games go on sale, I'll just keep an eye out on that. Maybe I'll pick it up and play that. But it's cool. Like there's a lot of I'm seeing a lot of like shorter games on here as well, which I think will suit me well, and it kind of will fit on this whatever theoretical list of games that it's like, oh, I want to complete as many games as possible. No, I don't ever feel like I want to complete as many games as possible, but I do want to play through more than I have this year, so I kind of want to sort of catch up in a way. So some of these shorter games might kind of add to the satisfaction of completing a game. So that is a lot to look forward to. There's a lot here to look forward to, and I'll see if any of them are worth picking up. Anyways, just a little catch up on, my experiences with Xenoblade X. I'm looking forward to kind of progressing the story when I have the chance, and doing some continuing to just kind of like build out the world and stuff. I'm having fun with it. It's a fun kind of game to play at your own pace and kind of do it on the side as you're maybe doing something else, listening to a podcast or whatever. So it's been a good game. It's been a good supplement for that, as well as the main story kind of being pretty engaging for the most part. It's nothing to the level of the main trilogy, but it's still cool. It's still a cool story. We got more basketball going on today, later this week. It's been a banger of a playoffs, and I'm excited to continue talking about those as those games come up. But anyways, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening as always. This has been Save the Semantics. Signing off.